So still looking at the unit circle, and oh yeah, so this video gets posted with me in this suit, so it'll live forever. Alright, cosine goes with x, sine goes with y, but there's other trig ratios we need to know about, like tangent. Do you remember how we found tangent when it was on a plane, like when we had a point? Do you remember what values we used to find tangent? It's y over x. Y over x. Opposite over adjacent, but we know that that's y over x. So it's still y over x, and so if you want the tangent of some angle, well then you go to the angle, and instead of just using x or just using y, you have to do y over x. And most of the time that means keep it, change it, flip it, because you got a fraction over a fraction. Well, if tangent is y over x, what's cotangent? X over y. So kind of the same thing. Go to the angle, grab the x, and grab the y. That still leaves two more trig ratios we haven't talked about. How do you find secant? Or who is secant paired with? It's paired with cosine, so it's 1 over x. So you can kind of remember either one. You either just remember that to flip the cosine, or you can think 1 over x, and that's the same thing. And really you don't do 1 over, it's a fraction. Most of them are fractions, so you just flip the fraction. Cosecant, kind of the same thing, except you flip the sign, so it's 1 over y. So the main thing is the x-coordinate is cosine, the y-coordinate is sine. These other four, you already know those, we just haven't used them in the context of the unit circle. Okay. Said this before, I'll say it again. This is how I do it without having a unit circle. I'm thinking about where is the angle, and then how long is the side we're asking for. A different way to do it, so I guess there's two other ways to do it. There's probably more than that. One other way to do it is to memorize the first quadrant. So some people will do that, and I don't want you drawing out the whole unit circle all next semester. That takes too long. And once we get later in the semester, it's not a big deal on the first test to draw out the whole unit circle, because pretty much the first test is just unit circle stuff. But later in the semester, there's like 2 or 3 questions where you need the cosine of pi over 3. Well, you don't have to draw out the whole thing if you just need the cosine of pi over 3. So one way to get there quickly is to memorize the first quadrant and sketch that out on a test, because that doesn't take very long, and there's still lots of similarities and stuff going on, so some people will memorize the first quadrant. The last way that some people use to do it, or to know the important values, is sort of a table format. So bottom right, let's make this table. And again, some of you won't ever use this table, but some of you will find it helpful, and this will be what you write on every test. So I'm trying to give you a variety of different ways to memorize, learn the unit circle without having memorized the whole thing. Let's see, cosine of pi over 6. And again, even to fill out this table, I'm using my method where pi over 6 is the shallow angle. Cosine is the x side. That's the long side. So cosine pi over 6 is root 3 over 2. That's how I think it, but other people are just going to memorize that the cosine of pi over 6 is root 3 over 2. Pi over 6 sine, that would be the y side. So that's a short side, so that's 1/2. Again, that's me thinking through it. Other people are just going to memorize that the sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. Pi over 4, that's the one in the middle. That's the easy one, because both side lengths are the same. They're both root 2 over 2. least in my mind, that's the easy one. Right? Because if you get them backwards, it doesn't matter. They're both root 2 over 2. Pi over 3 is the steep angle. Cosine is the x. For pi over 3, that's the short side, so that's 1/2. Or you just remember that pi over 6 and pi over 3 things are switched. Sine of pi over 3, that's the y side. The y side is the long side, so that's root 3 over 2. Now, again, that was me thinking through each one, but some people aren't going to think through. They're just going to memorize that table and then sort of use that table. And even if you memorize that table, because of all the symmetry, there's really only 2 values to memorize, because the rest, they kind of flow from there. So if you're going to memorize that the sine of pi over 6 is 1/2, and then you can know that cosine is the other one, and they flip for pi over 3, and then pi over 4, they're both root 2 over 2. So again, some people are going to memorize the table, other people are going to memorize part of the table, other people are going to be like, I don't need the table, what are we doing? I can just figure it out. Kind of up to you what method you want to use, but we've got to get to a point where we don't need the unit circle to know all the values. Mark?
If we make this table, we can apply this table to like any quadrant, right?
That's right. So whether you memorize the first quadrant or just memorize the table, it applies to all the quadrants. Now, if you're at 5 pi over 4, those values are the same, but you would have to be careful, because at 5 pi over 4, let's see, you're in the third quadrant, so both of them would be negative. So yes, that's the point of just memorizing the first quadrant or just memorizing this table. Those values hold for all the quadrants. You just have to be careful about who's positive and who's negative. All students take calculus. So the hope is you understand all of these connections, and that makes it easier. Probably more realistic is that you really latch on to one of the connections or one of the methods and just kind of roll with that. So looking at worksheet 1, try 1, 3, 4, and 6, and then we'll go over those in just a moment. There we go. Tangent is y over x. And again, after you've done a bunch of these, you're probably not going to write y over x. Your brain's just going to think y over x. And then you go to the unit circle at pi over 3. And so I'm doing this without the unit circle. So here's my thought process. Pi over 3 is the steep angle. So the y value is the big one, root 3 over 2. The x value is the shorter one, 1/2. And now I have to do root 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. Keep it, change it, flip it. The fun part about keep it, change it, flip it, and you'll figure this out as you do some of these, is that all the denominators are 2. So all the denominators are cancel out. And for this one, we're just left with square root of 3. So the tangent of pi over 3 is the square root of 3. Y over x. Why don't you try 5 and 8? 2 more tangent problems. And then we'll get some help on those from Gabe and Giselle to get through, so that the tangent of pi over 6 is root 3 over 3. Some of you are going to, so there's sort of 3 ways to do tangent. One is the way we did it, always do y over x. Another way is you do so many of these that you sort of just eventually memorize it by accident, that the tangent of pi over 3 is root 3, and the tangent of pi over 6 is root 3 over 3. There's a little bit of a hint or a help, because usually it's root 3 or root 3 over 3, and here's the tangent 3 trick. If there's 1 3 in the angle, there's 1 3 in the answer. It's kind of just a fluke, but it might help you remember. So tangent pi over 3 is root 3. If there's a 6 in the angle, well, 6 is made up of 2 3's. So there's 2 3s in the answer. None of that really matters though, because you can always do y over x. So if you're looking to memorize tangents to make things go quicker, then tangent of pi over 3 is root 3, tangent of pi over 6 is root 3 over 3. If you're like, my brain has enough stuff in it right now, I don't want to memorize anything, that's fine too. Just do y over x each time. Kind of up to you which way you want to go. All right, let's look at number 10. Cosecant. Who is cosecant partners with? Sine. So I need to flip the sign. So pi over 6, again, I'm not using the unit circle. Pi over 6 is the shallow angle. Sine is the y side. That's a half. But if I flip 1/2, what do you get? 2. So the answer is 2. Why don't you try number 12 and number 13? 12 and 13. So 12 is square root of 2. 13 is 2. Probably the most common mistake on one like 13 is answering 1/2, because your brain has to go through so many steps. Okay, I got to find cosine, and then I got to find pi over 3, and it's the short side, and all of those things, and you're like, okay, it's 1/2, and then you forget that you're supposed to flip it over at the end. So it's an easy partial credit thing, but it's also a silly mistake to make. All right, that's enough for me to go through and us to go through together. The rest of them is just more practice. I'll be happy to help you. Answers are posted. And I think, like I said, I'm going to make both worksheets due Monday. Monday the 12th, 12/12. But hopefully you finish this one in class today. If you're peeking ahead and you look at the other side, here's the difference. Worksheet 1 is all in quadrant 1. Worksheet 2 is all the quadrants. So worksheet 2, you'll have to be careful about who's positive and who's negative, but that's really not that big a deal. I'm trying to say you're ready to do worksheet 2 if you want to, but tomorrow we'll come in, we'll do some of worksheet 2 together like we did today. You'll do some, I'll do some, we'll call on people, we'll go back and forth, and after a few minutes we'll say, all right, just finish it. And that's the point we're at with worksheet 1. So finish worksheet 1, finish worksheet 2 if you want to, but we'll also have time tomorrow to work.